him that to go to the restroom. You come back. I'm starting on you. How's that sound? Amen. Bigger than Jerry.
We lost that battle. So, if you don't want to press him, Jerry, it's going to be, I don't want to do it. They wanted me to switch to Richard. That's Richard. Rice. He's on right now. Here's the list. I can do it. No big deal. My whole thing was, hey, you don't want to see I may do that. So I may do that.
I think I give you a gavel to bang or something.
No, I'm going to stand up here in about 2 seconds. I don't need a gavel.
No.
You ready? You ready to go? I was waiting on the lady in the restroom, but I think she's back.
So, if you do that, so that's presenters come up here, so that we have a
All right, we can start? All right, good deal. I'll let you get back to your seat. How's that sound? Richard, you ready?
Yeah, whenever you are.
Okay.
That's what he's. I'm just making sure he's good back. That's after they read. Yeah. Yep. You have the. I will say this. Yep. I will read Nate's bio. Yep. And I will introduce this. Yep. I'm going to introduce you real quick.
Hey, Coach, we're going to start. Coach Bryant, we're getting ready to start. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the induction this evening. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. If you please take your seats. My name is Matt Fisher, and I'm the Secretary-Treasurer on the Indiana Football Hall of Fame Board. Jerry had to leave tonight for family matters, and I will be taking over for him this evening. It's my great pleasure to introduce our Masters of Ceremonies, John Cate.
If we would at this time, all the candidates and presenters come to the main table, please. Don't hold my tie. Bob.
You know you, John.
Do what? Our ceremony will proceed as follows. I will read a brief biography of each candidate and introduce the candidate's presenter. The presenter will make brief remarks regarding the candidate, followed by a response from each candidate. Mr. Fisher will then present the candidate with a personal plaque. When all candidates have been presented, an induction pinning ceremony will follow as Mr. Fisher will preside over that. Our first inductee, Nate Davis. At 6'5", 310 pounds, Nathan Big Nate Davis has scaled the heights in more than one sport, football and track and field. He left a huge footprint in both. Track and field may have been his first love. He set school records and won state championships at Richmond High School in the shot put in 1991 and 1992. He was the national high school indoor champion his senior year. He also threw the discus at a very high level. Born in 1974 at Hartford, Connecticut, Davis moved to Richmond at the age of 4 and was placed in a foster home. Adopted by Tim and Mary Davis, his first organized sport was basketball at Test Middle School. He was introduced to football in the 7th grade, and the rest is history. As a high school freshman, he attended Culver Military Academy, where he played football and basketball. He returned to Richmond High School for grades 10 through 12. As in Red Devil football, Davis made All-State with 108 tackles, along with 18 quarterback sacks as a senior. He also played in the North-South All-Star Classic in 1992. In the fall of 1992, Davis moved on to Indiana University on a football scholarship, leading the Hoosiers in sacks in 1994 and 1995. He was named Indiana's most valuable lineman and was selected All Big Ten at defensive end. In addition, Davis was named All-American in shot put for 3 years running, 1995 through 1997. In 1997, the National Football League came calling. The former Red Devil and Hoosier was selected in the 2nd round of the draft by the Atlanta Falcons. In 1998 and 1999, he played for the Dallas Cowboys. Later, he played in the XFL in the Arena Football League before getting a call from the Canadian Saskatchewan Roughriders. In his first year there, he compiled 40 tackles, 3 sacks, and 1 interception. In all, he played 6 seasons for the Riders, 91 regular season games and 6 playoff games. He finished with 144 tackles, 32 sacks, 5 fumble recoveries, was named Western Division All-Star in 2003 and 2004, CFL All-Star in 2004, and named on the 2nd team era All-Star team for the Riders in their 100-year celebration. He was also inducted in the Rough Riders Plaza Honor in 2012. In addition, he was inducted into the Indiana Track Field Hall of Fame in 2003. Davis now resides in Drinkwater, Saskatchewan, his full-time home with wife Wendy. He has 2 daughters, Tegan and Zora. He currently works as an account manager for ATS Traffic Group. I remember Big Nate probably being part of one of the most outstanding offensive lines that Richmond High School has ever had here. If Travis McNew would stand up, he was one of them. The other 2 young men were Damon Lewis. Travis went to Ball State, of course, Indiana University. Damon Lewis went to Purdue, and my son John went to Ball State. But a tremendous offensive line that could be as good as anyone we've ever had. One quick story, my wife and I went to the Cowboys game to watch Big Nate play, not knowing that Big Nate was not dressing that day. So we've spotted Big Nate sitting down, enjoying a hot dog and a bag of popcorn in the first quarter of play. That's our big Nate. I, at this time, would like to introduce Coach Richard Bryant, who had the honor of coaching Nate in both football and track at Richmond High School.
Thank you, John. And thank you for all of you to come. What a great crowd. What a great day for Richmond football. I mean, you talk about a great bunch of guys to honor today. We have them here today. Also, I want to help Nathan out here because I want to, there's several guys who are here who played on the those teams with Nathan, and I'd like for them to stand, please. I know that Jeremy Bain. Okay. Thank you, guys. Yeah, there's some fond memories. And I really appreciate you guys coming. I know that Nate does also. I also want to thank Joe Etherington again. Guys, what an outstanding job Joe did putting this thing together. Let's give Joe a round of applause, please. This is a great thrill for me as I'm here with all of you to honor three great Red Devils. Jim Peters, Mike Rodich touched so many lives as Richmond coaches. They, along with Hub Etchison, inspired me to go into coaching. Then there was Nate Davis, who will be remembered as one of the greatest athletes to come out of Richmond High School. You heard his outstanding list of accomplishments. First, I have to admit, it was not always a pleasure working with Nate Davis as a youngster. He calls his parents, and I Fitz, in his early days in high school. His parents were great. They did not make excuses. All the heart-to-heart talks, the teacher meetings, I sit on a couple of those, and the times when the parents had to use some very tough love helped to guide Nate to become the man he is today. Mary, I applaud you and Tim for the job that you did. Today we honor both of you as well as Nate. It is my great honor today to present Nate Davis into the Football Hall of Fame. Nate was a huge part of the great teams we had in 1990 and 91. I could talk about those teams and Nate all night long, and if you've ever been cornered by me and me talking about some of my teams, you've probably heard about them. He was a two-way player playing both tight end and defensive end. On defense is where he really dominated. As a senior, he got better and better as he grew with our defensive philosophy. Nathan was part of a team that beat 3 top 10 teams to win our sectional. In the sectional final, we played defending 4A state champion Franklin Central, who at the time was ranked number 2 in the state behind Ben Davis. Franklin Central was a slot I formation team. Coach Montgomery chose to play Nathan over the slot receiver instead of to the tight end side, which is where we usually played him. The reason for this change was because the slot reverse was a big part of their offense. Nate's key was the slot. Anytime you released backward, Nate was to go with him. You have to understand, now for you ladies out there, these guys playing football, everybody's got their jobs, everybody's got their keys, and it's very, very well drilled. So if the kid releases upfield, it's probably a pass. So he's going to go for quarterback, and obviously if he gets blocked or keying through to the backfield, he reads the run. And the one thing we knew, their backup tailback, the guy who's going to play tailback next year, is a slot man, and he could get. So when he goes backward, now no one else has done this all year long. Okay, we're watching film. You have to understand this is a great team we're playing, and we're playing at Franklin Central. And so Nate has his keys, and again he had gotten better all year long, and they were so frustrated every time they ran that reverse. Nate would rip off that right tackle, and he couldn't handle him, and he'd get there and make the play from behind. I think a couple times he got the quarterback and the slot man as they're trying to run it. After about 3 times, they quit, and it was just really great. You know, when you're coaching and you see that type of thing work, and for us as a staff, it was a great thing to do that. We ended up winning the game 24-0, and again at Franklin Central, and then went on to play in the regional against Ben Davis. It's a great group of guys, and looking back on it, the coaches and I talk about Nate's maturity as a senior and his fresh approach to practice every day, regardless of how much he got his butt chewed the day before. And that's when you know a kid's getting better, he's getting older, and he gets it. I still occasionally talk to Steve Stripling, who was Nate's position coach, and Bill Mallory, who was the head coach at IU. Both have great things to say about Nate, and they have very fond memories of him. We as Richmond High School coaches all share those same kind of fond memories of Nate. At this time, I would like the following RHS coaches to stand who helped coach Nate: Martin Montgomery, Gary Weir, and Matt Oliva. At this time, on behalf of Richmond High School and Indiana University, it is my great honor to present to you 2016 Hall of Fame candidate, Nate Davis.
Good afternoon. I'll try to keep this rather short. There are a few people that I definitely need to thank, and I'll try to work through it maybe a little bit of a chronological order. But first, I'd like to thank my family, and not just my mother and my brother and my father, who's not here today. But my extended family, my aunts, my uncles, my cousins, a lot of them showed up today. When I was adopted when I was 5 years old, you guys really made it a point to open your homes and your hearts to me, and showed me what it was to really have a family. And I really appreciate that, and it's really kind of contributed a lot, I think, to who I am today. So I just want to say thank you to all of you. My brother, and I know he's heard a little bit of this before, but my brother is, I guess, the kind of person that if he wants something, he's not very shy about working for it. And he really set the example for me on how to work, how to push myself, get better. And I really want to thank you, because if you weren't who you were, I definitely wouldn't be who I am. So. My high school coaches, Coach Bryant, Coach Montgomery, it's great to see you guys, Coach Weir, Coach Oliva. I was really fortunate to have some really good coaches. And I think the biggest thing to me, what makes a good coach to me, is to be able to take your players and put them in a position to succeed. And I think you guys did an excellent job of that with me. Not just me, but with all of you. You kind of saw the talent that we all had, and you put us all in a position to be successful. And I really appreciate that. Coach Bryant used to come in before the games, and it's something he used to say to us before the games. Some of you guys that played with him might remember. But he would come in and tell us, men, if you keep hitting them, they're going to quit. Right? And he said it might not be the first play of the game, it might be the very last play of the game, but if you keep hitting them, they'll quit. And I tried to play my whole career like that, to where I would hit people and I would wait for them to quit. But that's something that's stuck with me. my entire life, is that if you want something, you have to want it more than the next person. And if you just keep pounding away at it, you'll get what you want. So I really appreciate that as well. Mel Young, Coach Mel Young, was my track coach my senior year. He and I had a really special experience where I got an invitation to go to the National Indoor Track Meet, and he felt very strongly that this was an experience that I needed to have. So he took the time and the effort and the energy to pull the money together so that he and I could go. And that experience where him and I going up there and being able to compete at that level, and I remember that meet, it came down to the last throw of the meet, and I was able to pull it out. And that was the first time I think that I really kind of got an understanding of, I can really compete at this type of a level. I can really be, I thought I could really be good, after that. And Coach Young's no longer with us, but his wife is here, and I always enjoy seeing you guys, and I love picking up. The NFL part of my career was, I guess the easiest way to say it was disappointing. I was a bust. I was a second-round bust. You get drafted in the second round and they expect great things from you, and I didn't. It didn't work. First time I was diagnosed with depression, and trying to have to fight through that. It just wasn't meant to be, I guess. And I think one of the things that kind of sums it up for me is after I had left Atlanta and before I went to Dallas, you go around to a couple different teams, you're meeting with coaches, and I was in New York at Weeview Bank Hall, sitting in Bill Parcells' office. And, Bill Parcells is arguably the greatest NFL coach ever. And I remember him specifically telling me, Nate, I don't think you really understand what it's going to take, what kind of commitment you need to have to be successful here. And some of the people that know me pretty well can probably guess my answer was, no, I think I got it. And obviously I didn't. But it was funny because after my time in the NFL, I kind of came to a point where I was really just tired of football. I was tired of everything that went into it, the politics, and I didn't understand. I didn't think I wanted to play anymore. And I remember coming back home one day, and I was at Lynn Potter's house with her and Jason, sitting in their living room. And I remember telling them, I don't think I want to do it anymore. And Lynn kind of looked at me like, boy, are you crazy? Like she wanted to just reach over and slap me. And that conversation that I had with her, it really put forth to me that, this isn't an opportunity that you get very often, and that I should take advantage of that and play as long as I could. And I was still on the fence. And then with the whole CFL, I had an opportunity to go to the CFL. And Nicole Bolden, who was my girlfriend at the time, the mother of my two lovely daughters, I remember we had a conversation, and basically she told me that if I even thought that I wanted to go play football, that I needed to go. Because she didn't want me sitting around 5 years from now, or from then, wondering about, saying I could have done this, I could have done that. So I owe a lot of people here a lot of thanks, but I know you've never heard it from me before. But I did get another opportunity. I was able to go to Canada, and Danny Barrett, Richie Hall, Ron Este, the general managers, and they really gave me a second opportunity, really showed me that they believed in me. And it worked. It clicked when I got there, and things worked out. And I guess the rest is history kind of thing. Looking back, when something like this comes up, it really gives you an opportunity to look back and see what, football has meant and the things that have happened around that. I can honestly say that my fondest memories of football were spent with a lot of the people here in this room, my teammates, these coaches, the people that we played for here in Richmond out on Liebald Field. I mean, there were times I'll never forget. When I look back at football, I mean, those are the things I think about. I think about, the Franklin Central game. I think about the Ben Davis game and how I couldn't just fall on the ball. But no, so it's I've always thought I've had a bit of a complicated relationship with football, I guess. On one hand, the opportunities that football has presented me and the places it's taken me, it led me to Canada, where I met the woman that I ended up marrying, and has been one of the greatest parts of my life. And at the same time, it took me to Canada, and my relationship with my daughters is what it is because I felt the need to follow that dream. And I would say that by far is the relationship that I have with them is probably one of the most profound disappointments, failures I think I feel in my life. So it's always been, a lot of good, a lot of bad. But overall, I look back, I wouldn't trade any of it away. And I think the other thing I started to realize when I look back at this, that it is in part about what I was able to accomplish on the football field. But I think another larger part of it, when I look back, is a lot of it is about the people that have supported me and have guided me and kind of saved me from myself at times. And a lot of those people are right here in this room. So I just want to say thank you very much. I really, truly appreciate this honor. It's a very humbling experience. And thank you.
Nate, we presented Nate with a plaque. There will be a duplicate placed in the Indiana Football Hall of Fame. And congratulations again on being part of the Indiana Football Hall of Fame. I'll turn it back over to John.
Congratulations, Nate. One quick story on Nate again. And I believe in 95, playing at Purdue, either 94 or 95. Again, my wife and I went to watch the IU Purdue game. The second half, you talk about a nonstop force, just completely dominated the Purdue offense. And really proud of a Richmond kid performing that well. And sorry, Purdue people, but he was very dominant that day. Our next two inductees have a special place in a lot of ex-players' hearts in this room. If you played for Coach Peters or Coach Rodich at this time, would you please stand? I think I can speak for everybody that just stood. The love, respect, admiration for these next two inductees, it's beyond putting it into words. My first experience with Coach Peters was in a phys ed class. And this is before I had been talked into playing football for Richmond High School. The whistle blows, you had about 3 seconds to sprint to your number around the gym floor for attendance. You're in your white shirt, red trunks, and this drill sergeant then comes out and takes attendance. But as a young student wanting to be a coach, what I learned from Coach Peters and Mr. Coach Rodich, and again, it's beyond what I can tell you, but a lot of my success, what little it is, comes from the Coach Peters, Coach Rodich, that have helped me in my coaching career. Another quick story on Coach Peters. My senior summer, I hadn't played high school football because of injuries. And Coach Etchison comes to my drafting class, said, "We would like you to be our quarterback." And I'm thinking, I have a lot of friends on that football team. You already have 4. So I go out the first day, and I'm 5th string, and I'm thinking, why am I wasting my time when I could be doing other things? Long story short, I worked up to the starting position. We're playing our first game. Now, understand, behind me, I have to hand off to, I have Sammy Stubbs, I have Marshall Crockett and Johnny Brown, and I have Tony Spicer. I mean, there's like 8 yards, 8 yards, 8 yards, any choice you make. He says, "I want you to quarterback sneak." And being the shy, introverted guy I am, I wonder, why? He says, "Because you haven't played, I want you to get hit." Thanks, Coach Peters. So the second game. So like the first 3 or 4 or 5 games, we start out 2nd and 10. With my blazing speed, we weren't gaining a lot of yards on that first down carry. Second game. "Coach, what are we running?" "Quarterback sneak." "Why?" "So you can get hit. So you can get used to getting hit because you haven't played before." Third game. "Coach, what do you want to run?" "Why?" "So you can get hit." But the respect, and I mean it sincerely, the love and what I took from that man, I personally can't thank him enough. Coach, now 82, can easily be described as one of the best all-around athletes in the history of Richmond High School, competing in 4 sports at a high level. Coach is a 1952 graduate of Richmond High School in 1956 from Purdue University. He made his mark at both schools as a running back in football as well as a talent on the baseball field. He also served many years as a backfield coach at his high school, alma mater under legendary coach Hub Etchison. Now, being a head coach as long as I have been, you're as good as your assistants. And today we are honoring two tremendous assistant coaches that should have been a head coach at Richmond High School when Hub retired. That's just and I mean that. It's very ironic, Coach said, that my college roommate at Purdue, Bob Springer, and I are both in the Football Hall of Fame. That's very unusual. Springer is the former coach at Indianapolis, Washington, and passed away several years ago. Peters was born March 24th, 1934, in his hometown of Richmond, Indiana. As a high school student athlete, he lettered in football, basketball, baseball, and track. In his senior year as a standout on the gridiron, Jim was a high school All-American, made All-State, All-Conference, and was the state's scoring leader with 151 points and 25 touchdowns and 1 extra point. He also played on Richmond's first undefeated football team coached by Bill Elias. In track, he won a state qualifier in the 100 and 220 dashes, finishing 5th at the state meet in both races. He was highly sought after as a high school athlete, and Purdue University was his choice. With the Boilermakers, Coach lettered 3 times in both football and baseball. He then spent 2 years on the U.S. Army from 56 to 58. In the service, he was player coach for the 4th Division Artillery team in Fort Lewis. I remember one time, Coach said, that Woody Hayes told me I could have played for him at Ohio State, Peter said. Now, notice I always refer to him as Coach, and I apologize. To this day, until I pass, they are my coaches. It's not Jim, it's not Mr. Peters, it's Coach, out of respect that I think all of us ex-players have. But I picked Purdue because I like Hank Stram, at that time the assistant football and head baseball coach at Purdue. Hank drove me around campus. As we sat there looking at the football stadium, he said, "Look to your left." It was the baseball field. He said, "You're my center fielder. And if you choose to play baseball too, you won't have to play spring football." That sounded good. Woody had told me I couldn't play baseball, so that helped my decision. Coach returned to his hometown of Richmond and served as a teacher coach there from 1958 through 79. As a coach, he assisted in football, baseball, and wrestling. Following his tenure at RHS, Coach spent time as head football coach at Brookville High School from 81 to 84. For the past 28 years, he has been employed by the Richmond Recycling Center. Coach Rodich and I, Coach, were very close when we were coaching and afterwards too, Coach said. We ate dinner together every Wednesday night for many, many years. We, Coach Etchison, Peters, and Rodich, had great continuity when we were coaching all those years. Jim is married. Coach is married to the former Myrna Knoll and will celebrate 58 years of marriage this June. They are the parents of Pamela, Jim, and John. Additionally, they are grandparents of Tyler, Caitlin, Mac, and Sophia, as well as grandparents to Ross. At this time, I'd like to introduce Mark, Coach Peters' son-in-law.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. As you heard, I am Jim's son-in-law, and that can be a difficult relationship in some families. But Jim and I have a great relationship. In fact, I usually tell people that I feel like I won the father-in-law lottery. And I think Jim likes me too. At least he did before the speech. And at age 82, I know Jim subscribes to that old saying that it's important to have a good relationship with your son-in-law because he's most likely to pick your nursing home. few of you guys are getting nervous now, huh? One of the things I like best about Jim is that he's a man of the highest integrity, moral standards, and values. He plays life by the rules and always does what he thinks is right. Since he sets the bar so high for himself, makes him a great role model for others. And he's really the kind of guy you want to have coaching your young men in football or baseball. He's the kind of guy you want to have working in your business. And he's the kind of guy you want to have as the patriarch of your family. When I joined Jim's family over 30 years ago, I quickly realized Jim was always going to be the easiest guy to buy for at Christmas. All we needed to get him was the next year's Farmer's Almanac and something that was black or gold with a P on it. So that he could flaunt his Purdue pride. Around the year 2000, we learned that Purdue would be releasing a book titled Greatest Moments in Purdue Football History. So we knew we were set for Christmas that year. We just needed to get the almanac. When this book came in, it was finally delivered a little before Christmas, we started looking through it, and on page 52, there was a picture of Jim getting ready to tackle an opposing player. Now, this confused me just a little bit because I had always heard that Jim was a right halfback on offense. So what was he doing in a picture getting ready to tackle an opposing player? I figured there could only be two possibilities. One, that Purdue's vaulted offense had made a turnover on that play, and Jim had to turn into a defensive player. Or two, that Jim was actually playing both ways. Now, for you young people in the crowd, I'm not talking about a college experimental period that Jim was going through. So I didn't know which of the two possibilities it was. So I waited and waited. We finally gave Jim the book at Christmas. Immediately after he opened it, I had him turn to page 52, showed him the picture, and said, Jim, can you explain this? And he explained to me that throughout his college football career, apparently the college football rules went through a lot of changes as it related to platooning and substitutions. And in this particular year, Jim and his teammates played both offense, defense, and all the special teams. Those guys had to be pretty sore and tired after one of those games. As a big sports fan, Jim and I have bonded over the years through sports. We've seen some Pacers games, Colts games, attended both Colts Super Bowls, sat through about 5 hours of Purple Rain one year and watched the Colts win in Miami. Seen a few Purdue football games too. But the Peters family tradition that I love the most is the fact that we attend the Indianapolis 500. Going back to 1952, which was the year that Jim graduated high school and was becoming a real force on the football field, the Peters family got its first season tickets to the big race. And every year since then, from 1952 through the present, started with Jim's father George, and his brother George has continued this tradition. Some segment of the Peters family has gone to the race and sat in essentially the same seats by the start-finish line. It's a great tradition. Memorial Day weekend is probably my second favorite holiday, just right behind Christmas because of it. And Jim himself, I think, went to over 60 Indianapolis 500s in a row, sat in these same seats, and his streak was just broken a few years ago. But one of my favorite memories of Jim at the race happened just a few years ago, one of the last races that he attended. And we were deep into the race. It was a great race, a lot of good racing. And all of a sudden, we noticed that there was some mystery liquid that started dropping down on us. So knowing where our seats were under the penthouse section, I knew there were only two possibilities. Either somebody up above had dumped a cooler and we were getting hit with melted ice, and most of it, by the way, was going on Jim, or the plumbing in the men's room up above had backed up. The little yellow-shirted security guy ran up the steps to figure out what had happened. He came back down and assured us without question that it was not, could not be melted ice from a cooler. As Jim's presenter, I feel like I represent all the people who have been important to Jim in his life. I represent his parents and his siblings and their spouses, his wife Myrna and their 3 kids, his 4 grandkids, and our newest addition, Jim's great-grandson Ross. I represent all of Jim's nieces and nephews, many of whom are here tonight, and we're pleased that you guys made the trip. I represent his fellow coaches, his players, his teammates, and his students. I represent his co-workers at the recycling center, and I represent his friends. And on this very special night, as we welcome Jim into the Indiana Football Hall of Fame, here is what all these people I represent would want you to know about Jim. In all the relationships that really matter in a man's life, Jim Peters is Hall of Fame in all our books, too. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming your candidate for the Indiana Football Hall of Fame, James Alfred Peters.
Thank you, Mark. I'd like to thank the Board of Directors of the Indiana Hall of Fame. I don't know if you folks know that President Kiesling's father passed this week, and it was very important for him to be here to start the induction ceremony. I appreciate that very much, that he would take that time during his family's situation. I'd like to introduce some folks before I have second chance here on what Mark had to say. My wife Myrna, daughter Pam, our son Jim is employed by Oracle, some computer outfit out in Colorado. And it's their quarterly update. And since he's a systems analyst there, he's unable to attend. Our son John, who's with us. My brother George, who still gets those 500-mile tickets. His wife Carolyn, their daughter Kim, and son-in-law Tom Hombarger. I'd like to recognize my nieces from my oldest sister Martha. She had 3 boys, 3 girls. You'd have thought she was Catholic, but she's a Lutheran. Can never understand that. Would you stand, my nieces and nephews, please? I'd have Myrna to stand, but she requested I not do that. But I'm going to have her stand anyway. Myrna, Pam, and son John, Caitlin, granddaughter, Tyler, and Caitlin's husband, David Strickland, father of our great-grandson, Ross, and Tyler's, I don't know what to put you on the spot, Tyler, but your girlfriend. Thank you. Nate, at Purdue, we never lost to IU when I played. been a little different lately. It's hard to understand that situation. But I think we're going to correct it. Let's hope, anyway. I'd like to talk about 3 phases in my football career. Junior high school. Coach Shook, and like John, Coach Shook is Coach Shook. I never called him Burl, but in shop class I thought I was a wise guy. And Coach Shook had half the shop, and Mr. Watterson had the other half. Well, I was in Mr. Watterson's half. Ring the bell. It's cleanup time. Well, I got my job done. I'm sitting on the bench back there, and I say, "Hey, bro!" Went back to the office. I don't know how he figured out it was me. But he said, "I'm Coach Shook, and I'm Mr. Shook to you." And he burnt my tail with the paddle. And from remember on, he was Coach Shook. I never called him Burl the rest of my life. I'll say this about Coach Shook. He was always looking for the next year. We at Hibbert School, if you can remember those names, we're not much in the football power at all. But he saw some potential, and so he had 8th graders come out. And so we got the uniform, and we put on the pads. And I picked a helmet out. It was nice colored blue, leather, no face masks, no mouthpiece. I put this on. I'm out there. We're practicing. And dummy me, that hat didn't have a suspension in it. So I get hit, knocked out. I'm not cold. Burl's wiping out of my face because it completely got my sinuses cleared. And he said, "What happened?" I said, "Coach, I don't know, but I got hit pretty good." And he's looking at the helmet. He said, "Why are you wearing this helmet?" And I said, "Well, it's nice looking. It's blue. Got that nice paint job on it." He said, "It doesn't have a suspension in it. Get a different helmet." So I changed real quick. The only other time I remember getting hit real hard was against Notre Dame. And it was on a kickoff. Sophomore year, I run the kickoff back, and I got a hit, and my toenails tingled. And I said, "Whoa." And after the halftime, we go in, and I take the jersey off, and I look, and somebody had bit me in that huddle, and I know it was a Notre Dame guy, because those guys are dirty football players. Not really. I remember getting back to that junior high thing, we won a couple games. I couldn't believe that, and I don't think Burl Shook knew that either. I think he was surprised that we did that. But we won a couple. We go to high school, and we get over to high school, and Dick Tiernan's the head football coach. He's an IU fella. He liked a single wing. Well, in that system, the right halfback's a blocking back. 5'6", 140 pounds. I'm blocking back. I get to thinking about that. So my sophomore year, I'm trying to make a decision if we're going to play football or not. We go to Eaton, Ohio, and we have a game over at Eaton, and I get stung over there. And we get back to Civic Hall, sitting on the back steps going on Civic Hall. Lyman Lightbolt, the athletic director, is looking at him, and the coach is saying, "Well, we're going to cut his jersey off." And Lyman said, "Oh, no, no, no." He said, "We only got 2 jerseys, and we're not going to cut that jersey off because the numbers, home and away." So we finally got it off, and I recovered from that stain. But so my junior year, I said, "I'm not going to play football." And Coach Shook comes to the house, and he said, "I think you really should go over." He said, "This new coach, Coach Elias, runs a different system. It's a split tee," and he said, "You'll fit into that program." So I said, "Well, I'll give it a shot." So we go over, and I'm about 3 days late. Coach Elias greeted me and tried to whip me into shape real quick. And we start this split tee. And it's an option situation where you got the back dive, off tackle, quarterback option. And it's pretty good. I'm pretty quick, 2 steps, full speed. And somebody said, "Why are you so quick?" And I said, "Guys like Nate, damn, they're chasing you." You don't want those guys catching you. So you're going to hit that hole real quick. And we had a lot of success doing that. And we were 5-4 that year. Now, Nate knows when the light went on for him. Now, I call it the light. When you're playing football, there's a time in your career when things start to take perspective. You know that you can play. You know when you can play. We're playing at Fort Wayne. I'm receiving the kickoff. I take it up the left side. Here's the guy going to tackle me. I put the shoulder into him. Of course, we're wearing leather helmets and no face bar, no mouthpiece. Smart. Let me tell you about this nose. I never broke it playing football. I broke it because my mother's brother was a wrestler, and he had a medicine ball at home. And at 6 years old, I'm on that medicine ball, and I fell off of it, and that's how I broke my nose. True story. Now, where was I? But the light went on against Fort Wayne Central. I take that kickoff, and I hit this guy, and he goes down. He's hurt. I'm not. Tear that shirt off, baby. I'm Superman. I can play. And it never stopped. I have great memories of that and the undefeated team that we had the next year. We won our last 4. We ended up 5-4, and then we win the next 9. And there's some players here that played on those football teams. And I see Tom Holthouse over here, and my brother George sitting over there. They played. Is there anybody else that played on that football team? I don't know. A lot of those fellas are not with us any longer. But of that football team, 11 got Division I scholarships. So that means there was a lot of talent on that football team. And Dick Murley and I went to Purdue, and then Lamar Lundy came to Purdue, and then Tommy Fletcher. That's why Bill Elias got the job. He was the guy he didn't really recruit us, but we recruited him. And he took that, and Bill was a motivator. I remember between the summer of my junior year and senior year, he wrote a note to me. I don't know why he wrote a note, but he wrote it and sent it in the mail, which is different. And it says, shoot for All-State, shoot for all conference, and let's see if we can be undefeated. Now, you talk about a visionary. There's a guy that was thinking way out there, and all those things came to pass. And we were playing Tech. Tech, North Central Conference, big ball game. Joe Sexton was their star. Joe's a great basketball player, Mr. Basketball and all that. And he played left field at Purdue. I played center field. And I don't want to miss out introducing you to my other roommate, Joe Hawthorne from Washington, Indiana. He was our starting pitcher. He was all Big Ten pitcher. I tell you what, his sinker ball, hated to hit against him. It was so heavy, it'd break your bat. And Joe's here today with his wife, Susie. Joe, would you stand up? My college roommate. He's a little younger than I. Tell a story about Joe. He comes to town. It's in the spring, and we're going back early because we're going to do baseball. And we got a TV in our car, and it's Joe's car. It's a 52 Chevrolet Bel Air, hardtop. You talk about sharp. And it's a little icy that day, and we're taking 40. And I said, Joe, I'll drive. I know how to get over and get up to the 40 so we can get up and get going and then take 52 bypass and do all that stuff. And Joe tells me, he says, now, you're used to automatic. He said, don't be getting off that accelerator, because he said that thing will do a little bit. By God, it did. We spin 360 degrees, end up in the ditch, tailpipe, whoop, up underneath the car. Some farmer comes by, stops, offers to pull us out. We got that thing jacked up. We think we're going to get it out, but he throws a chain on it. And you know how those old bumper jacks were with that crooked handle and that nut and that spike on back? That dude flips out and just missed that farmer. Scares Joe to death. I didn't see it like normal. But we then continue, and we had a TV in our room at Purdue, and our antenna was a hanger. We set it up. We had 3 rooms, had a walk-in closet, study hall, and a living room. Blue lights, and the labels were all built, beer labels all around the room. I don't know who decorated it, but that was on the wall. And we had a great time at Purdue. Bob Springer, Joe Hawthorne, and we stayed together 3 years that way. Now, where was I at? Let's see if I can remember this. It's hard at 82. And one thing about that board. Why wait 65 years to let a guy in the Hall of Fame? Damn. Shit. Oh, boy. Mark, I can't remember all the things you talked about there, but whatever you say, you exaggerate a little bit. But that's okay. I will talk to you later. But the second phase is after the high school career. We were fortunate, unfortunate. I had signed a contract to teach school at Test Junior High School. And I would have been the football coach and the baseball coach. That's the way they had it set up. And so I'd signed a contract. I get notice. And, of course, I just started my wife, Myrna, and we were on a world date deal and all that, and that's another story, too. But she was a secretary across the street from my father's shop, H&P Tool Company, and that stands for Hunt and Peck Tool. And she would come to work about 8, and I was just there for a summer job because I'm going to teach school. And my dad always said, you do what you want to. I don't want to get in your way. If you want to work at the tool company, that'd be fine. But you do what you want to. So being hard-headed, I did what I wanted to do. And I took that and signed that contract. I get drafted. So I take my contract to Paul Garrison, superintendent of schools. And he said, Jim, you go serve. I thought, wait a minute here. I could get deferred. All you have to do is tell them, the draft board that I'm a teacher and I'd get deferred. He said, you go serve. When you get out, you'll have 2 years' experience and you'll be higher on the pay scale. So I'm listening to Mr. Garrison. So I go. The next day after I go, it comes down from Washington, D.C. All teachers are exempt. Jesus, one day. Just one day. But I serve and get out of basic training. And we're over at the new barracks. We're going to move into the next 8 weeks of training. First sergeant comes up. PFC Peters. PFC. General Wheel wants to see you. He's at headquarters. You go report to General Wheel. So I go out and I salute. He's got 2 stars and all this stuff. He puts me in the limo, and he said, we're going to the football stadium. And he said, you play football, you're a running back. When we get to the stadium, you go sit on the bench. Next week you're playing. Yes, sir. So that's that story. But as we go, everybody's saluting. There's old PFC sitting in there. Man, I'm really thinking I'm a big deal. Well, I get there, and then we play, and we have some success. Score a lot of touchdowns. Last game of the year, we're playing the Engineers. And not having a lot of practice and so forth, you got to get in that rhythm in football. You just don't pick it up that quick. And I had planted my left leg, tried to pull it out. My right leg came down. I see this guy from the engineering guy. His helmet's coming right from my right knee, ACL, medial collateral. Load me in a deuce and a half. That's the ambulance. Take me to the hospital. And we put it in the cast for 30 days. When it comes out of there, it looks like a brand new one. White, nice, atrophy, no muscle, no anything. And the doctor says, if you can get 90 degrees and lift 120 pounds, you can get a convalescent leave. You talk about working. Boy, at night I'm in the hot shower, I'm breaking those adhesions, I'm lifting, doing everything I can to get out. And I get out, and I get a 30-day convalescent. I go back to the base, first sergeant, he's got the outs for me anyway, because I hear the general came and got me, and he's mad. I don't get my advanced training. And he says, you ready to go back to active duty? And I said, no, I got a 30-day convalescent leave. He said, what? I'm not honoring that. I said, I'll see the chaplain. He said, you got it. Starts right now. So I get on the phone, call Red Cross. They get everything going. I come home, and I get home. I go dancing, doing everything, rehabbing my knee. And Myrna and I have dates every day and all that. So I get 30 days that way. And in July, same thing happens. I get 30 more days because I didn't use my regular 30 days. And then I go back. I coach. I didn't get to have duty, no card duty, any KP and all that stuff. So football's been good to me. Todd Hill, how you doing? Todd is one of our associates at the Recycling Center. Good to see you. Jenny Staten, Sean Staten, all the recycling folks. And my second family is Jack Edelman and Deborah Edelman. They have been wonderful to me. 28 years at the recycling center. How many people can say that they worked 2 careers in their lifetime? I'm very fortunate. Thank you, Debbie. Thank you, Jack. Todd, Jenny, good to see you. Sean. Yeah, Sean's a good golfer. He can hit the devil out of the ball. Todd's not bad either. And big boys. I've always been big boys. I used to hide behind those guys. Let me tell you a story about Ray Nitsky. We're playing Illinois. Bill Stearns, the announcer. Big time. TV, NBC. Woo! Black and white. No color then and no instant replay. So we're playing at Illinois. And we find out that we're in a T formation, and if Lenny hands off the ball, we can run a dive play, which I'm used to running a dive play. So I'm running dive play, and I think 6 or 7, 8 plays later, we score a touchdown. Bill Stearns says, I didn't know Purdue could run the football. Well, we didn't do that very much because Lenny Dawson could run backwards faster than most guys can run forward, because he had 2 great running backs blocking for him. Bino Nevis, he was 5'8", 185. Here I am, 5'6", 141 pounds. So I can see why he ran backwards pretty fast. That leads to another story. Let's get back to that Army deal. I played and coached, and I'm in a hospital. General Wheel comes to visit me. Now, you talk about people really picking up and doing everything, you know. The general comes, and he says, you're going to be coach and player next year of the 4th Division Artillery football team. And I said, that's fine. And I get back to my base battalion, and first sergeant, and all of a sudden, I get orders to go to Korea. Well, I get my orders. I go over to see General Wheel. He and I are buddies now. He looks at it and says, you're not going. He said, I'm changing those orders. He said, we'll get somebody to take your place. You're my football coach. I said, thank you. So that's how that went. And I started to try to play and coach. Gentlemen, you can't do it. You're involved in trying to coach people, and you can't play. It just doesn't work, because you're going to run a play. And John, I remember that deal when, and it wasn't that I wanted you to get hit. I wanted you to take the snap so that you had confidence and could settle down, and then you could handle off to those great running backs that had behind you. It wasn't the fact that I wanted you to get hit. You know, it's typical of a war story. They get better the longer you're out. You know, this has been fun. I know I've missed some folks. I see Roland Cutter out there. He's an old classmate. Tom Cox. Tom Cox and I go way back. We play screen ball, and everybody said, what the heck is screen ball? Over at Dennis, there was a field in behind there, and it had a tennis court screen, and we'd play screen ball. We'd go play that, and 3 or 4 guys. We didn't need any help doing it, and we had a lot of fun doing those kind of things. Stayed out of trouble. We rode bicycles. We climbed trees. We did those things. We didn't lift weights. We played with leather helmets, no face bars, no mouthpiece. And I really think, and let me say this to you coaches here that are doing the job today, you have a very difficult job. It's difficult to coach today because of the publicity of the head injuries. Fellows, you teach the right techniques, and the helmets are so much better today. the suspensions and all those good things. Fellas, just strengthen the neck, and your players will be fine. Make sure they're strong. Work on that neck. I used to take pride in our backs when I coached at the high school. I wanted them to be tough physically, but also mentally. Mentally. Because you never know when the light's going to go on, and when the light goes on, they will be a football player. That's key. And those kids will know when the light goes on. You teach them that. I see some of the former players here. I see Dickie Bird. He was one of our quarterbacks. He was one of those that threw the ball well. John was a great quarterback for us. We didn't coach him long enough so he'd get bad habits. We'd run a play in, and he'd run it. Remember that? You would run the play. I mean, no matter what it was, he would run it because he didn't know that, oh, man, I might question that a little bit with all that experience he had. I noticed some real dear friends of ours. I see Joanne Kitterman, Kent Kitterman, Tom Milligan. Tom was as a Purdue Boilermaker, and Tom was at the high school with us. Pat Jarvis. Shoot, I can name a lot of folks here, and I'm sure I'll miss some. I see Kenny Harlan. He's been a long-time friend. Matt Napoti, player. Dickie Bird back there. Tom Kinder. My friends from Connorsville, Larry and Gary Reepsummer. It's just a very, very special time for me, and I know I rambled, but shoot, when you're with friends, why not? Thank you very much.
We'd like to present this plaque to Jim. Uh-oh, Jim. I'd ask John, Kate to come back up, and we'll go on with our ceremony.
Our next inductee, Coach Mike Rodich. Two quick stories. It involves Coach Rodich and Coach Peters. When my 10th grade year, Coach Rodich called me to his industrial arts room. He said, I've heard good things about you as a baseball player. You have a chance to be our starting third baseman this year as a 10th grader. So as the year goes by, I work hard academically and become ineligible. I'm sent down to Coach Peters, who was the JV baseball coach at the time, and Coach Rodich had told Coach Peters, motivate him to get his grades up. So Coach Peters proceeds to take a pair of pants, dye them pink, make me wear them every day in practice until my grades are up. Now, if you did that today, you might get called in, but it's great motivation to get your grades up. Coach Rodich passed away at the age of 90 in late December of 2015, but not before he had touched the lives of thousands of athletes in football and baseball over many decades of coaching. A native of Clinton, Indiana, Coach lived in Richmond from 1949 until his death while residing at Friends Fellowship Community. He retired in 1985 after spending 36 years of teaching and coaching at Dennis Junior High School and Richmond Senior High School. Coach Rodich was the line coach for the Red Devils from 1956 through 78, and at one time even assisted in basketball. He was head baseball coach at Richmond High School for many years, led the Devils to consecutive sectional championships in 67 and 68. There were no state tournament series prior to 1967. And another good friend and baseball assistant, Bill Farley, succeeded Coach Rodich as baseball coach in late 1970s. At Dennis Junior High School, he was Richmond's head ninth grade football coach from 1949 through 56, winning the city championship 3 times. In 1957, Coach was promoted to the status of defensive coordinator of the Richmond varsity team under Coach Etchison. The Red Devils won 12 North Central Conference championships during the time with the varsity and were mythical state champions in 1956 and 1967. The 67 team gave up only 18 points defensively. Now that's a typo. The defense gave up 18 points, but I think I was accountable for 12 of those 18 from the offensive side. So that needs to be corrected. Well, we had a double reverse at Hammond Knoll that to this day I can still hear you. Why didn't we run that quarterback sneak at that time? 12 Richmond units were ranked among Indiana's top 10, and 5 were unbeaten. During Coach Rodich's tenure at high school, approximately 200 football players earned college scholarships, and 6 made it to the professional ranks. Born January 21, 1925, Coach graduated from Clinton High School in 1942. As a high school football player, he was an Indiana All-State and All-Wabash Valley Guard. He served in the U.S. Army Air Corps as a pilot from May of 43 through February of 46. He received his undergraduate degree in 1949 from Ball State and his master's in 1955. He played football at Ball State under Coach John Magnabosco. He was preceded in death by his wife of 58 years, Virginia Ann Jib Hutchins Rodich, and is survived by his lovely daughter, Marianne Welsh of Scottsdale, Arizona. I know Coach Rodich is looking down upon us today, him and his co-life mate, just tremendous, tremendous people if you knew them. I know he's upset that we're honoring him, but very deserving honoring Coach Rodich At this time, I'd like to introduce my friend, Bob Connington, a former player for Coach Rodich.
It's a privilege to introduce Coach Rodich to the Indiana Hall of Fame. My name is Bob Coddington. I knew Coach for over 50 years. I played a very mediocre left tackle for him in 1965 and 66 and played baseball for him 65, 66, and 67. Coach Rodich was a great storyteller. I could listen to him for hours. Some of the stories I was like, Coach, how did you get to Clinton, Indiana? And then you just sit back and you listen. And it's a great story. He had an uncle that came from Serbia to the mines in Wayne, Michigan. And 4 years later, he sent for his brother, Mike's father, who was 14. They put a lanyard around this 14-year-old's neck who could not speak English and said, Wayne, Michigan. And that's how Mike Rodich's family started in Rodich. Why did they leave Michigan to come to Clinton, Indiana? He says the mines were a lot easier to work in Clinton than they were in Michigan. I could listen to his stories forever. The beautiful thing about Mike was he did not live in a complicated world. He had a set of beliefs, and he lived by those beliefs and never compromised them. It's interesting, he was going to go play for the famous Pete Elliott on a full-ride scholarship to Illinois. I don't know if many people knew that. And another Serbian was a football coach at Ball State University, or Ball State College, came to meet Mike's father and said, we want Coach Mike Rodich to play for Ball State. And Mike said, no, I'm going to Illinois to play for Pete Elliott. He said, no, you're going to Ball State and play for John Magnavosco. And guess where Coach ended up? Ball State for John. That's the world that he lived in. When he said something, you listened. When his father said something, you listened. He was a teacher, a coach, a mentor, a friend, but most of all, he was a great example. Coach was a patriot, served in World War II, the greatest generation. He was dropped behind enemy lines, and to this day, no one in this room, myself or anyone else, knows what went on behind those lines and what his service was, because he was sworn to secrecy, and he took that secret to the grave with him. How he loved his country, a great example. Faith. Coach was old school. He didn't talk his faith. He lived it through service, through quiet, behind-the-scenes charity, a great example. As a husband, oh, how he loved Jip. He thought he won the lottery when he married her, and he lived his life every day to prove it. In Jip's last years, you could see his devotion, leading her, balancing her, protecting her. Again, a great example. As a father, the most important thing a son or daughter wants from their father is approval. How Mike loved his daughter, Mary Ann. He was very vocal to the ones that were close about how proud he was of her and how he would talk about her and look forward to her nightly phone calls to him. Teacher. His control of the classroom, respect. He was demanding, getting the best from his students. Greg Merchanthouse, who's in the audience today, wrote about him and said, I attended Dennis Junior High School as an 8th grader. I first had Mike as a teacher in his woodshop class. Mike was a combination drill sergeant and teacher. He let it be known the first day of class that he was in charge. What rules would be and what would happen if you disobeyed those rules. He was what boys that age really needed. And Greg suspects that is what's lacking in schools today. But Mike taught you how to work with your hands and make things, plus other essentials in life that you needed. I was in concert choir at Dennis. I walked into the shop class dressed, or so I thought, for a concert later that day. I had on my dress shirt and my Sunday best shoes. Mike immediately pulled me aside and said, "Merchant House, who taught you to tie a tie? And look at those shoes." And he proceeded to show me how to tie a double Windsor knot that I use to this day and how to shine my shoes properly. This is just one of the many examples of leadership and teaching skills. A great example. Now, as a coach, that's why he's being inducted in the Hall of Fame as a coach. And Mike was so much more than a coach. Now, one thing, he was verbal. Got two stories about football that I remember in my mediocre career. And one was my junior year, August. No, everybody wants to quit football in August. There's no grass, it's hot, and they're yelling at you incessantly. So I decided I was going to go home, and I went home and talked to my father and said, "I'm quitting. I don't like it. All this coach is doing is yelling at me." And my father taught me something very wise that day, and I remember that. He says, "As long as they're still yelling at you, they care. They think you can do something. Now you get back out there." Great advice, but that was Coach, and I listened to his yelling in a much different perspective after that. And I spoke at his funeral about the posts. You can't even have posts anymore, but anybody that was here and played in the 50s and 60s, we had yellow post telephone poles, 4 feet apart. You'd put an offensive lineman on one side, a defensive lineman on the other side. They'd blow that whistle, and they never got tired of blowing that whistle. And then you would just go right at it. You couldn't go left. You couldn't go right. You could only go, he was either coming through you or you were going through him. Dust, dirt, 90-degree weather. And I'm sure the defensive lineman that took me, grabbed me, because it's the only way he could have gotten me on the ground. But no, he just laid me flat. And I'm eating dirt, and I started using some 4-letter words. And that's when I understood another thing about Coach Rodich, because he picked me up with one hand and said, "Knock that language off. That doesn't make you any meaner. That doesn't make you any better, and we're not going to have that here." Another great example. Tonight I've tried to give you a glimpse of Mike Rodich. He was a great individual. But everyone that knew him as a person, or a better person, because of the great example that Mike Rodich led it by. It's an honor to introduce Mike Rodich to the Indiana Hall of Fame, and I'd now like to introduce Marianne Welsh, my friend, Mike's daughter, to say a few words. Marianne?
Thanks, Bob. Can people hear me? Nobody can ever. Okay, good. Yes, I'm Mike Rodich's daughter. And while I am sad that he can't be here with us tonight, I am very privileged to be able to be here to accept this award on his behalf. He would have, well, those of you who know him, he would have been absolutely thrilled to be here with all of you. And he would have been deeply humbled and extremely honored to be inducted into the Indiana Football Hall of Fame. I know that one of the very first things he would want me to do standing here is to extend congratulations to Nate and Jim. So please, on behalf of my father and myself, accept our heartfelt congratulations. And there have been a lot of thank yous tonight, so I'll try to make these thank yous not quite so much. But I do want to thank the board of the Indiana Football Hall of Fame and the Indiana Football Coaches Association, basically all those folks who have participated in the process that has led us all here tonight. And included in that, I want to give a very special thank you to Ken Jordan. Ken, would you please stand up? Everybody knows you, but stand up anyway. Ken was kind enough as the one who nominated my father and sponsored him through the process for this honor. And the other thing my father would do tonight, he would thank all of you who are in attendance here. And I'm so happy you're here to share his honor and to help us celebrate and make this a happy occasion for him. I'm sure that he never expected to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. And again, you had to know him, but he really didn't do the things he did with the idea that he would get an award or some type of recognition. He actually did the things with respect to the team in football because he genuinely loved it. And he did, trust me, these aren't just words. He found joy in the game of football and the community of football. And he was most grateful for the opportunity to do that. And I don't need to tell this group that football's a team sport, right? Okay. It's a game, much like many things in life, where the team is paramount. And so it goes without saying what he achieved and accomplished, he did not do that in a vacuum. He did it together with his fellow coaches and the players. And he dearly, dearly loved his players. Although, well, John and Bob and others here can attest to this, but I'm going to guess that at times on the field, in the heat of a game, it might have been a challenge for the players to believe that my dad's interactions with them were a display of love. But they were. He did care about his players, and he cared about them on and off the field, about their development as players, but also about their development as people. He didn't stop coaching when he would walk off of the field. And probably this is most evident by the countless number of players and former players who would come to our house when I was a kid, and then his and my mother's house after I moved away, to visit with him. It was a frequent and familiar refrain at our front door: is Coach home? Nobody ever came to see me. No, it was just like, is Coach home? All right. And many of those players would make return visits over the years, and they would some would bring back their fiancés, some would bring their children later to meet my dad. And that continued with some of his former players and colleagues clear up until last year when he was a resident at the Courtyards at Friends Fellowship. Now, there's one other player that I need to mention. I would be remiss not to, since we're talking about a team, and as Bob mentioned, that is my mother, Ginny Jip Rodich. She and my dad were quite the team, an inseparable team. In fact, I think her support of him was invaluable. I'm sorry, I know Marco. Okay. So, not just for all of her moral support, but all the times that she would sit smiling while he was drawing up new plays at the table during dinner when he really should have been conversing. And all the times that she attended, I think she attended every game, virtually every game. She may have missed a handful of the out-of-town games. But at each game, where she would be in the stands, trying mightily not to cringe, when on occasion, and you may recall some of these, on occasion, my dad might be providing, shall we say, advice to the players. But I recall this, too, watching it before high school and during high school. He would literally be in the player's face. I mean, there was no visible space between, none. And I was pretty good in physics, but I was mystified and actually relieved that no player ever lost a nose. It was pretty close. Anyway, what my dad would tell you in concluding is that he was truly blessed and grateful to be a part of such a supportive football community surrounding Richmond High School. His life truly was made rich and full by all of his experiences, his colleagues, his players, rewarding both professionally and personally. He was one of the fortunate ones. He actually got to live his passion and for the game of football. And he got to do it as part of a fine organization and among those who share that passion as much as he does. Dad, we really wish you were here, but I will proudly accept this distinguished award on your behalf. So, on behalf of Coach Rodich, I want to give you all a sincere thank you. Thank you.
What three great inductees. If one more time, Nate Davis, Coach Peters, and Marianne for her father, Coach Rodich, if you'd stand up one more time, and one more round of applause. At this time, each presenter has a pen, lapel pen in hand to be pinned to each inductee as the Indiana Football Hall of Fame proclamation is read.
The Indiana Football Hall of Fame proclamation. From the tears of sadness and disappointment to the joy and excitement of success, Nate Davis, Jim Peters, and Mike Rodich have provided examples of dedication to further the excellence of the game of football. Through their examples, they have met the standards established by the Indiana Football Hall of Fame. On behalf of the Indiana Football Hall of Fame, it is my privilege and honor to proclaim that these gentlemen are officially inducted into the Indiana Football Hall of Fame on April 23rd, 2016. Congratulations to you and your families. Again, I would like to thank our event sponsors, First Bank Richmond Recycling, our First Bank of Richmond, Richmond Recycling Center, as well as Forest Hills Country Club, the officers and board members of the NEF Football Hall of Fame, and our honored guest. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes today's ceremony, and again, thank you for coming out tonight.